Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Integrity Racing Show. I'm your host, Todd Thomas. Happy to join you with the league administrator and owner, Jacob Fife, who's waving and is very excited to be here to recap both the contender round of the Cup Chase playoffs and the truck race cutoff race here at Phoenix tonight that we just wrapped up about 10 minutes ago. We're actually going to get started with the Cup race with the Truck Series tonight and recap the Truck Series race from Phoenix. And there you see the results from tonight's race. Andrew Fayash, in one of his few attempts to race in the trucks, leads a race high 90 laps, gets on the correct pit strategy towards the end, and leads the last 40 or so laps up there for the 77 machine. Guillermo Alvarez with a strong run to finish second. James Hudson, who needed to get a good finish to make the next round of the playoffs, finishes third. Good front run for Chuck Sweeting after a couple of drivers in the top five spun out on the last lap. So Chuck Sweeting gets a fourth place finish. And then you see Sam Nieto fifth. Rounding out the top 10, truck chase driver Jacob Fife, Maxime Theriault in seventh. Cody Smith was also fighting for that final chase spot, and unfortunately, by virtue of an eighth place finish, falls a little bit short. Lance Gentle's a little bit short, getting into the final race at Homestead as well with a ninth place finish. And Alan Pajari rounds out the top 10. Jacob, a good race tonight in the Truck Series. Pretty strong field as we scroll down here. 21 drivers at a tough racetrack. Phoenix is known as a tough place to get around. 8 cautions for 27 laps, but those cautions, at least in the Truck Series, puts people on a different tire strategy.
Yeah, it definitely brings in different aspects of the strategy and race into play when you have those cautions hit at certain times during the race. That was shown definitely tonight. I know you and I, Todd, had a similar strategy. We pitted with about 40 to go, and that should have been that was actually a pretty decent strategy. It ended up being the last caution of the night until a couple to go. And if it weren't for you spinning, you'd have actually had a better finish than I would have. But all in all, I think it was a decent race. A few less cautions would have been nice, but it was good, decent field, decent race. And obviously, we have 4 drivers who have moved on to the next round, the final round of the truck chase, which would be 2 weeks at Homestead. So definitely a lot to look forward to still. And I'm sure there's some drivers with waiting with bated breath as they're going to be looking, a couple of them, for their first time in the Integrity Racing League, looking at running for a championship at Homestead.
Yeah, I actually brought up the last caution of the race on the 2 to go lap, coming to the white flag after I spilt my beer running fourth. And in a panic, clipped the apron and also caused Maxime to spin out. So sorry to those guys for that, but didn't affect anything too bad, luckily, as things had pretty much already shaken out. You see Jacob Fife, who kind of realized the position he was in. I think he would even say that tonight, knew as long as he didn't have major trouble, he was going to be fine. So Jacob is the top points getter out of the contender round, so he qualifies. Greg Trigo with a kind of silent effort tonight. Same type of thing, just kind of stayed in the back, made sure he didn't have too much trouble. Finishes second. Second in the round. James Hudson also qualifies by virtue of his third place finish tonight. Gets in by 4 points. And Randy Fayash, once again, sneaks into the next round and will be racing for a title at Homestead. I know a lot of people are happy for Randy and definitely going to be rooting for him next week at Homestead. Jacob, we take a week off for the Truck Series, and then it's time for all the marbles to come out at Homestead. It should be an exciting race between yourself, Greg Trigo, James Hudson, and Randy Fayash.
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to be an interesting race for sure. I hope that a lot of guys are able to come out for the final truck race of the season and add to the mix. I think that's what's going to make the championship interesting, and that's why you play the game. Really, it's up to any 4 of us. It's all even, and whoever finishes the highest of the 4 of us will be taking home a trophy. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm fortunate enough to say that I've been in this position a few times with the Cup Series. luckily for me, Andrew is not racing, so that helps a lot. But I do have the experience of knowing these situations and how to handle it. So hopefully that will help me somewhat. But ultimately, it's just a matter of understanding race strategy and how the race develops, and putting yourself in the best position to win. Come 2 weeks from now tonight. So I know, like I said a little bit earlier, I know both Trago and Fayash. This is their first experience with trying to go for a championship. So I'm sure both of them are excited to make it this far, and either one of them have just as well a shot to take it all home. That had Homestead.
Should be an exciting race. Again, that's in 2 weeks here for the Truck Series. We take a week off before the Truck Series goes to Homestead. So everybody, hopefully we'll see you out 2 weeks from tonight for that last truck race at Homestead. Would love to see 25, 30 trucks show up, make it a fun race. It's always a fun. I had a lot of fun tonight, despite the fact that I don't really enjoy the truck. So we want to see everybody come out. Should be a great race for the championship. A couple of guys that maybe aren't usual suspects to be up there, and a couple guys that maybe are, and it should be an interesting battle to see how that shakes out. Now, Adam de Blasio has put a wonderful little presentation together that's going to recap the contender round and get us through for the Cup Series and get us ready for whatever the hell the next round is. I think it's called the Challenger round. I can't keep it all up.
Eliminator round.
The Eliminator. Yeah, the Eliminator round. So let's go ahead and check out what Adam de Blasio put together for us here. You can see we're at the contender round recap. First off, we would not be able to do this without the support of Extra Life and specifically Lance Gentles and his sponsorship for the contender round and his Extra Life promotion. So we want everybody to again go to extra-life.org. All right, extra-life.org. And then if you go to the homepage here, actually, I think I'm still on the wrong screen, so my apologies on that. Yeah,
I
so
couldn't get to the Facebook chat quick enough to tell you that.
yes, but so there we go. So that's what we're supposed to be on. But if you go to extra-life.org, that will take you to the homepage. And then up here on the homepage in the upper right, make sure you search for Lance Gentles. You can see that I've already done this a couple times, so there it is. This will take you to Lance's page. You can see that Lance is up to $75 of his $250 goal. I know Lance will be doing a lot of streaming on November 4th. That's the big day for Lance, where he'll be streaming, I believe, pretty much the whole day and trying to advertise for that. I know Jacob's, on behalf of the league, has already made a donation. I'm planning on participating a lot with Lance on November 4th and playing as many games as I can with him. And I'll hopefully be able to chip in as well. So everybody check that page out. And again, thanks to Lance for his sponsorship of the contender round. So let's talk about the contender round. The first race of the round was the Charlotte 250, powered by Extra Life there. You can see as we started the round, Caleb Eisenhower won and clinched his spot into the Eliminator round in a good race. Adam de Blasio was in second. William Dunn finished third. Tyler Herr and Chuck Sweeting rounded out the top five. You can see as things started to play out amongst the chase contenders there on the right side, Lance Gentles finished sixth, so got him a good run, but he wasn't able to follow it up later in the rounds. But then you had James Hudson also missed out after not getting off to a good start. Michael Dole and then Guillermo Alvarez. Jacob, looking at this, you see that three of the four drivers that were unfortunately eliminated didn't have the good first race, and I think that maybe factors into it. It kind of puts you behind the eight ball and maybe starts you having to force things in the second and third race.
Yeah, it definitely does. I think I was fortunate enough to make it out of the first round having that same issue when the chase started to begin with, and it's very difficult to do. I'm sure Tarabuck is tired of doing it. He's pulled it off twice in each round and been able to transfer on. But it's not easy, and it's definitely nerve-wracking. So being able to set yourself up on the first race of each round, and I'm sure we'll talk about it here in a little bit when we talk about Martinsville, is absolutely important in order to not only for stress relief, but just to kind of get yourself ahead of the game and give yourself as much cushion as you can going into the next two races, and obviously what would be, I believe, Texas and Phoenix.
Absolutely. So, as we kind of mentioned, the two drivers that maybe had some trouble in the chase were Nick Terribuck with a 22nd place finish, and Eric de Blasio finished 23rd at Talladega. But they had to fight and claw, especially Terribuck there at Kansas, had to claw for every spot he could, and we'll see how that worked out. Eric de Blasio, by virtue of a pretty strong finish there at Talladega the next week, was able to put himself in a good position. So you can see how the points kind of shaked up here. Guillermo was 7 points behind. Duel was 2 points behind Terribuck and Eric de Blasio. Then we went to Talladega, everybody's favorite place, and Adam de Blasio becomes the restrictor plate king of the Integrity Racing League. If only the kid could win on a real racetrack. So Adam de Blasio gets his second win of the year at Talladega. Tyler Hurst second, Christian Challoner third, myself fourth, and Brad Patton fifth. You can see Chase Contenders really had a bad race here at Talladega, and I think this is maybe, as Talladega you would think, Jacob, is the definitive race of the round. You see that our four drivers that were eliminated duel with a do not start. Unfortunately, I have to apologize to Guillermo because this was my fault. Finishes 33rd, Lance Gentles 24th, and James Hudson 15th. So four of the bottom five finishers amongst the Chase drivers were drivers that did not advance to the eliminator round.
Yeah, I think this really starts to kind of outline where each point really matters. If you take a look at where Hudson was, for example, obviously being teammates, we raced with each other for most of this race, and a couple spots here and there in our last pit stop really made the difference between him maybe being where I was, and then back where he was. Just a couple little things here and there, the way a draft line hooking up and being able to get to the next group, or us not connecting quick enough, was the difference between 3 or 4 positions. And really, it's so hard to impress upon people how important each point is in each race of each round, because you really don't know, as we'll look at Kansas here in a second, what's going to happen to create this 1 point difference or 2 point difference in whether you make the next round or not. So being able to kind of scratch and claw for each position that you can during these weeks is absolutely paramount. And that's really what you see at Talladega, which is a complete crapshoot, really emphasizes that.
Yeah, absolutely. Every point's going to matter. I made it a point in all three of these races to try to get that lap lead point. That's 3 points, and as we'll see as when we break that down, 3 points can be the difference. So I was lucky enough to qualify on the pole at Charlotte, and I just said, okay, I just want to lead lap 1. And then at Talladega, I made it a point, okay, Pajari's at the lead. I wanted to get in front of Fayash. I saw Fayash coming along the outside. I was like, I'm going to make Fayash push me to the lead and get that bonus point at Talladega. And then at Kansas, I actually stayed out, drove through pit lane to get that extra bonus point for staying out and leading a lap. So 3 extra points can be the difference. Obviously, those 2 points for having a clean race, that's 6 points if you can do that 3 times through the round. Good luck to everybody trying to do that next week at Martinsville. But it can be done, and it can determine who wins the championship. So let's continue on. We obviously went, and this is how the chase grid kind of factored out. This pretty much completely removed Guillermo and Duel from contention, and so it left us with Nick Terribuck and James Hudson 2 points behind. You had a lot of drivers like William Dunn, Jacob Fife, and kind of myself. There was a reason why Dunn, Fife, and myself were back in the 20s for much of the race. That seemed to be where we were kind of comfortable, as we figured if we finished the top 20 or so, we're going to be fine. And so it allowed some drivers to feel a little bit more comfortable going to the Kansas 200 powered by Extra Life, where Caleb Eisenhower got his second win of the round. Brad Patton second, Andrew Fayash third, Nick Terribuck fourth, and Jason K. Miller finished fifth. Good run for Jason. Good to see him get a top 5 run. Another driver that's been consistent all year long. But it was an interesting finish. Is how I'll leave that. It looked like James Hudson was going to be in a good position to probably transfer to the eliminator round, coming to the checkered flag. But he gets tangled up on an incident going into lap turn three, and then it just became a demolition derby of everybody trying to grab every spot they could coming to the finish. So Talladega seemed to prove some things, and Jacob, I don't know what else you could say about Huddy. He continues to have these issues with chase rounds and missing because of a disqualification.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing I'll bring up, and I'll probably dodge my way around Hudson, but the Hudson point. But if you take a look at the if you take a look at the screen there, you notice the third highest chase driver is 11th. The 10th, everybody on back down to the 11th highest chase driver is 22nd. So you're fitting 10 guys within 11 spots. And we were all in the same wreck together at the last lap of the race. So I think everybody kind of had an idea of, and we weren't in that order either, I promise you. I think we all had a really good idea of where we were in the point situation. And it's definitely one of those deals where even you and I, at one point, really close to the end of the race, were really having to do math to see how close we were to the cut line, because we weren't far off, and I think we both knew it. So the difficulty about the whole incident on the last lap is just literally scratching and clawing for every point. If my memory serves, I want to say that Hudson and Trago were battling for position. Tara Book had kind of moved ahead, so that put all of them right. I know at one point I think they were all tied, or there's four drivers pretty much tied at the cut line between Hudson and Trago and de Blasio, who was 20th going into the final lap, if I remember correctly. And then Lance Jennings was also right on the cut line as well, right behind. I want to believe it's Dunn. He was right behind, right in that group. So you're all battling. And then when something happens like that, it's every man for himself, really. And it's unfortunate that it ended up happening that way, as the race in and of itself was pretty decent. A few more cautions that I prefer, but the chase race within itself was pretty decent to that point, and it is unfortunate that was the result of how it ended. But at the end of the day, there are four people who have to get cut, and that's just how it managed to work out. So.
Yeah, it was a scary moment there for a lot of people. I know I went into the race thinking, okay, as long as I don't get involved in a wreck, I'm gonna be fine. And then you're like, hey, somebody tell me where Tara Buck is, and they're like, oh, he's in second. And you're like, wait a minute, I'm only 12 points ahead of Tara Buck here. If Tara Buck finishes second, so it really kind of Tara Buck. Yeah, Guillermo's leading the race.
50 laps. Yeah, like wait, I didn't calculate for that.
Yes,
No disrespect to Guillermo, but I didn't put that in my math plan that I had laid out.
Absolutely. When you see Zach Novak, Mac Busa, Andrew Fayash, and those guys signing up for the race, you don't think, well, what if Guillermo wins the race?
Right.
And then you're hearing, okay, well, Guillermo's leading the race and Tarabuck is in third. And you're like, what the hell just happened to me here?
This is good. No.
Yes, no. So it really was an interesting race. I was constantly trying to do some math in my head and trying to figure things out. It is kind of a shame, but, kudos to Nick Tarabuck. The guy came into it needing a finish, and by God, the man delivered to get a fourth place finish, and he earned every bit of it. So congratulations to Nick. I know he had to claw his way into it, and he did the same thing in the past round. So the man's a fighter. You got to give him that. So congratulations to him. So we'll go ahead and show how the point standings wrapped up. You can see Caleb and Adam both won races. William Dunn, Nick Tarabuck, myself. I only make it by 2 points. I thought I'd actually miss the next round after getting involved in that incident. And Greg Trigo as well, and then Eric de Blasio by virtue of just 1 point over his teammate Lance Gentles. So every single point matters here. You see the final four people on the grid, 6 through 9, only separated by a grand total of 2 points. So every point
Yeah,
seems to matter.
and just to indicate the difference, really, that the last lap that happened there, Hudson got DQs. So that was 15 points, and then his difference of position was another 15 points. So if he had maintained position or even lost a couple positions, he would have been in the final, he would have made the cut by a couple points as well. So it really tells you how close everyone was within that grouping there.
Absolutely. So the chase grid as we move to the eliminator round: Caleb Eisenhower, Adam De Blasio, William Dunn, Nick Terbuck, Jacob Fife, myself, Greg Trigo, and Eric De Blasio. You can see the points all get reset. No carryover points since we were doing the NASCAR 2016 point system. So we'll go ahead and preview the eliminator round. The first race is Martinsville. You can see again uh, uh, where we're headed there. Again, sponsored by Extra Life. Here is where the 8 contenders finished last year. Adam De Blasio had a good run and finished third. Greg Trigo's 12th. And Jacob Fife there with a rough 34th to bring up the rear. Myself and Eric De Blasio all also bringing up the rear. It's much like Talladega in the sense that you can't really control the chaos, and you just try to put yourself in the best position you can, and you kind of want to be up front, but because of the layout of Martinsville, you get a lot of different tire strategies and things go on there. So, Jacob, you've been through here a couple of times. I believe 2 years ago you actually won Martinsville
Hmm.
to get yourself into the next round. So, you've had some success here. You've obviously had some failure. That's on the screen. Any tips to those of us that are in the final 8 for the first time?
Yeah, survive. And that's the honest answer. I mean, you have to really play your cards right. You have to have some luck. But this is also not to say the other ones aren't, but I think this is really a driver's track, and it's my best chance of moving forward that I have within the last 3 races. I have a fighter's chance of running, if not running in the top five, or if not winning, then running in the top five here. Um, I really do. If you stay out of trouble, and that's a big if, like you said, it's just like Talladega almost, just in reverse, um, just because it's so compact. But it really is. If you play your cards right, or if I play my cards right, this is the race to get me onto the final round, or at least give me a cushion to set me up for uh, doing okay at Texas or Phoenix, which Texas I suck at. Um, so I think it's definitely a survival race. I think that's the basis of it, and then you get whatever positions you can, and hold on and see what happens at Texas and Phoenix.
Moving on to Texas, which is by far my worst racetrack on the service.
Mm.
And I've always struggled
You
at
and me both.
Texas, but in the spring race, I actually did pretty well there at Texas. Uh, Texas in the spring for the Integrity Racing League, we actually had the dynamic tracks worked probably the best I've ever seen it work at Texas. A lot of drivers were able to move up to the second line. It'll be interesting to see if that happens again. So we can see last year Adam De Blasio finished second, Greg Trigo eighth, and then Jacob 19th. Tough race for a lot of the chase contenders. I can't remember if there was a big race a wreck there that took out a lot of people or not, but Eric De Blasio, William Dunn obviously got caught up in some trouble. Jacob, Texas is a multiple groove racetrack now with the dynamic tracks. Makes it a lot more interesting. And Texas is usually a place where you get a decent green flag run or two.
Yeah, I agree. Usually we have one, if not two, green flag pit stops in the course of the race at Texas, and strategy plays into that somewhat. I know. I'm trying to remember the splits from earlier in the year, I should say. Usually most guys will pit around 30 laps, and some will stay till 40, 45 laps in a run and then start making pit stops. And you'll kind of see a distinct strategy develop. Um, so it's really um, a matter of how you drive your car, and how effective you can make your tires after you make a pit stop, and then how the cautions fall. Really, I think most drivers go into it knowing there will be a caution more than likely at some point towards the end of the race. It's just a matter of how do you play that strategy and how much risk do you take in coming in earlier each time to maximize, because there is a big fall off, maximize the tires you have, but then the risk you take with that in possibly going an extra lap down from pitting earlier.
Yeah, I think it should be noted when we're talking about all these races, and I'll actually go ahead and talk about Phoenix here and put Phoenix up on the screen. It should be noted here that we do list over here on the right-hand side, Adam lists where the chase drivers that are in the final 8 finished at Phoenix last year. A little bit of context here. I wasn't racing for anything at any of these tracks last year. I was already eliminated in this round, so I didn't care, so I was just limping around. So you do have to put in context of some of the drivers were already eliminated at this point in the round, or were new to the league, and so they didn't really have much to race for, and they might have been racing a little bit differently. So that is something to put in context. And then also, you just can't control getting involved in wrecks. So you can see Phoenix last year, Matt Bussa got the victory. As Bussa has been known to do. Caleb and Eisenhower got the second place finish. Joe Lawrence finished third, Jacob 5 fourth, and Brandon Coppinger fifth. 2 flat tracks in the round, Jacob, and those drivers that can handle a flat racetrack. I know that's something that you pride yourself on as being pretty good on the flat tracks. I'm typically somebody that enjoys a mile and a half track, but unfortunately Texas is the only 1.5 mile track that I'm not pretty good at. So people that can handle the flat tracks, you get 2 out of 3 races there, you got to feel pretty good about yourself.
Yeah, I think my goal every year, personally speaking, is to get to this round. I think it's the round I'm most comfortable with, even though it probably didn't show that racing trucks tonight in Phoenix. But I mean, yeah, I would say this kind of comes into my wheelhouse a little bit, and I tend to have a little bit more success, which is good. It gives me an opportunity, as we've done last year, the last 2 years, to get me to Homestead. Obviously, I run into a little bit of issue at Homestead, but yeah, I mean, it changes things up. I think I like the fact that you're doing different tracks in this next round here. You're doing a mile track, you're doing a short track, and you're doing a mile and a half. So you have to have enough into each discipline to be able to get you to the final round of Homestead.
All right, and a little bit of a correction here, Jake. Adam is actually watching the show, and he made an excellent point that I maybe screwed up on. These the statistics that were on the right-hand side were actually the results for those drivers at the spring races earlier this year. So people were actually driving for something. So a little bit of an error on my part there. So my apologies on that. But that's going to wrap up the show for us tonight. Wrapping up as we look towards wrap up the contender round, head towards the eliminator round. Trucks get the week off, so take your Tuesday nights and enjoy that. We might actually bump up the start of this show so that we can get to bed a little bit earlier, since me and Jacob are getting old.
Yes.
But the trucks have the week off. But the Cup Series, hot and heavy Monday night in Martinsville. And hopefully we'll see all of you there Monday night for the race there. So thanks for joining us tonight. Thanks for Jacob for running the league and joining us as well. And we'll see you next week at Martinsville. Have a good night, everybody.